possibility that we might even be a thought form ourselves, because of course we're all thought forms. It's just we're all tulpas created by intent of another being. It's just a question of what the source is, and the original monad souls are fragments of Lucifer's broken body or extended consciousness at the Big Bang. These original monad souls are the tulpas of God. We are extensions of God's consciousness who have fallen into the illusion of autonomy, of self-determining existence. And in order to maintain this illusion, we have had to stay on the surface of consciousness, our internal dialogue, our feelings, our preferences, our wants, our dislikes and likes. And so we've created a surrogate identity. But underneath the surface of that surrogate identity is our real identity, which is as fragments of the consciousness of the divine, fragments of the galaxy, of the universe. Now, so the same thing is happening on a microcosmic level, is that sorcerers' monad souls, because we are holographic components of the totality of divine consciousness, we also have this capacity. It's matrix within matrix. We fragment our consciousness and we create other sub-beings, subspecies, which in themselves become autonomous, and so on, ad infinitum. There are levels and there are levels. So we must be able to accept that we are thought forms created by a greater thought form. It's really not about who we are or even what we are. Because what we are is consciousness, all of us. From the lowest tulpa to the greatest creator supreme being. Consciousness is the common thread. Exists through all things, no matter how low, no matter how distorted, no matter how anchored in untruth, consciousness is still present. However, a tulpa does not exist in a true sense. Just as a thought in our heads does not exist except as an expression, as a movement of consciousness. Just as a current does not exist save as a movement of water or electricity. It's the electricity, it's the water that creates the current, the flow, the ripple. Now, this is the case with us as sorcerers and as tulpas. We do not exist. A tulpa, however, the kind that I'm referring to, cannot grok that, cannot accept that, cannot even entertain that possibility in any real way. Perhaps in an intellectual way, but not in a deep, centered way. They cannot drop their identities, because to do that they would cease to exist. The only identity they have is this superficial, this track of thought that's been created for them by the old seers, using our awareness, our psychic energy to do so. And so a tulpa has to cling to his or her identity like a drowning man clinging to a straw. They have no choice. What we're talking about then is a sort of multiple personality disorder on an energetic scale, and taken into the realms of science fiction, in which our multiple personalities actually have autonomy and apparent physical existence outside of ourselves. Each of us as sorcerers has many personalities, because our totality has been fragmented through time and space. However, this is not an us or them thing, because those of us who are original monad souls can only become so by reintegrating those aspects of ourselves that are presently running around autonomous, thinking that they are living beings. So this is all about us. There is no them. The beings out there that I'm describing as tulpas or thought forms are not the enemy. They are simply that part of ourselves that we have let get away, that we have allowed to run wild. So the only appropriate relationship to have with the people out there who are not actual people is one of absolute empathy and of affinity. and to allow them to disintegrate peacefully. This is what the old seers are doing everything to prevent from happening. So we must love and reclaim and embrace and tenderly let in all those aspects of our psyches that we find repugnant and repulsive and contemptible. And that, let's face it, is the vast masses out there plugged into their TV sets, knocking back beers, behaving in ways that we frankly consider beneath us. Those ways are beneath us. They're the forms of behavior that we have disowned in ourselves. They are the aspects of the collective psyche that represent the lowest functioning of the species. And the reason they become so aberrational, so totally destructive, so opposed to the movement towards galactic or divine consciousness is because they've been disowned and they've been allowed to become legion. They have replicated, they have multiplied, and they have assumed a sort of autonomy and a sort of dominion in this realm, because that's how the old seers have directed things to be. But this can change very rapidly, but only when we accept that galactic consciousness is only for a very, very few. Unless we can begin to look at things in this way, then we'll remain trapped by the us and them conundrum. When the dream ends, all but the dreamer disappears. So unless we're aligned with the perception, the point of view that is the God, that is the dreamer, then we must prepare to disappear, to be dissolved into the awakening. The pull of the truth, as individuals, original monads, sorcerers, shaman, autist souls, as we awaken to the truth, this creates like a vortex of increasing power and velocity and gravitational pull, a vortex of truth. And as this vortex grows stronger, those who are resisting the truth, who have built lives on untruth, must go deeper and deeper into the personal identity, into untruth, in order to resist that pull. And the result of this is that they must become more and more aberrational. They must behave in more and more destructive, distorted ways. And so this is what we're perceiving on the planet at this time. And this is inevitable. This is the Armageddon narrative. And it must be seen out to the end.
Okay, death is just another word for
dissolution.
I'm not mad, I'm just
inspired.
Humanity is here to
crack the shell of identity.
The best thing about sex is
you can't fake it.
The difference between children and grown-ups is...
That's a tough one. Definitely is a difference. Children are closer to God.
More connected, aren't they, naturally?
Yeah, lack of distortion.
The nature of magic is...
enchantment.
The point of religion is...
to reconnect to our true nature.
Oh, that's a very positive reply, that, because everyone else, including me, has just come out with negative shit for that, haven't they?
Everybody, to a man, said control. Really interesting. I think it's to do with me being raised as an atheist, so I don't have that.
Yeah. It's just that word religion, I think it's kind of got a bad rap, hasn't it? If you take it back to its early, its early intonations, it meant something very, very wonderful. It's just gone.